What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live. Today,
What's going on, everybody? Welcome.
I got my volume, and
I got
Eric
it.
does too. I had it on my phone, and Eric had it on his computer as well. So let's make sure we're sorted out. And yeah, we're just gonna be talking about the NBA possibly having a plan to return by this time next week, because today's Friday and next Thursday they plan on voting for a return to action, and from all accounts it sounds like they're looking at 20 to 22 teams. Now let me just start this off by saying maybe the NBA is going to actually use my idea. Maybe they found my idea of 20 teams, 1 through 16, and because honestly that's the best way to do it right now. You got a huge gap between 13 and 14 in the NBA if you're just basing seeding off of all teams. You got a huge gap between 13 and 14. It makes no sense to have a play-in where Dallas might miss the playoffs. They're 7 games ahead of 9th in the West. The 7th and 8th seeds in the Eastern Conference are not that good. They both have losing records if I recall correctly, but they don't really have anybody challenging them because 9th in the East, I think, is Washington. So they're 5-6 games behind. So I came out with the idea a few days ago. I don't know if it was before our last show or after, but have 14.
I think it was right after.
Right after. Have 14 through 20 play 6 games. They each play each other once, and have them play to try and get into the 14th through 16th seeds. You have 4 teams from the West that are all tied. Then you have Memphis, you have Brooklyn, you have Orlando. And you seed teams 1 through 16 because this is the perfect time to seed the teams 1 through 16. And then you let them play. You cut the lead in half. Memphis is 3.5 games ahead of Portland, and the teams Portland are tied with. You cut that down to 2 because Memphis had a 3.5 game lead with 16 games left. If you reduce the season to 6 games left, you should cut that lead in half as well. So we'll see if they do that, or it's some different sort of iteration of a 20-team play-in. Maybe it's 20 versus 14, 15 through versus 19. I don't know exactly how it would work. But either way, it sounds like the Portland Trailblazers are going to get a chance, which is all I wanted. I just wanted some Blazer basketball. I wanted the Blazers to get a chance. And it sounds like that is what they're looking at doing. So I'm excited. I'm just curious to see how exactly they're going to structure it.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping, as opposed I am in normal years to having the reseeding, I hope they just decide to do that. And then you could have 13 teams for sure in, and then have the rest of the teams, whether it's 7 or 9 or how many ever teams they decide to include, fighting for those last 3 spots. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, depending on how they sort it out, if Portland could get up to 14, I don't know exactly how it'd work, but if Portland could find a way to get up to 14, you could be looking
Play
at
Toronto in the first round.
Yeah. And maybe they have the top seeds play 6 games to warm up, and maybe they could change seeding. I don't know, but that would honestly be better than if the season kept going as is
Finished
for the
out,
Portland
yeah.
Trailblazers, because you're looking at okay, maybe we could have caught Memphis, we would have had to beat them both games, and then we would have gotten the 8th seed, and then we would have had to play against the Lakers, or maybe the Clippers if they could have caught them, but it was probably going to be the Lakers. But now we have a chance to play a team like Toronto, and honestly, in a first-round series with Portland being healthy going against Toronto, I think Portland would have a decent chance at beating Toronto. Toronto's had a great season, and obviously a lot of those guys now have championship experience, but Toronto is a team that before Kawhi Leonard was known to kind of choke in the playoffs. Now after Kawhi Leonard, the roster isn't that impressive. It has me excited to see exactly how this sorts out, because I'd love for the Portland Trailblazers to play an Eastern Conference team. The Bucks they'd struggle with, but any other team, I'd have confidence in the Blazers being able to win that series.
The only problem is we'd be thoroughly outcoached in that series, so that'd be a tough one to overcome. Hopefully, wouldn't end up like the Pelican series where we're all helpful and then we lay a complete egg. Real quick, NBA Forever says, where did you hear next Thursday? Everything says July 31st. He's talking about the vote to make sure or to finalize what the plan will be is supposed to be next Thursday, not that the season would start next Thursday. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, basically.
But I don't understand why it's July 31st. That's 2 months.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, there must be some sort of logistics they got to figure out that I can't see. Obviously you have to give the players time to warm up. I don't understand why it's July 31st. They've had months to try and plan out some sort of return to action and to come up with different contingency plans, right? The July 31st is more than 4 months after the season was canceled in the first place. I don't see how they need, in the end, 4 months to sort out some sort of return to action plan. You know, I feel like they're maybe not being the most efficient, you know, but also there's a lot of politicking with it, with certain owners wanting certain things. It was reported today that 16 of the 30 owners voted for the league to just go straight to the playoffs, which is kind of funny because there's 16 playoff teams and 16 owners voted for the league to go straight to the playoffs. So yeah, there's definitely some teams voting in self-interest. Wojnarowski even admitted that. You know, that as a Blazers owner, I would not be voting for that, and I don't think Paul Allen would if he was still here. I don't think Jody Allen would. So obviously teams are going to be biased for their self-interest, so it's really just going to come down to Adam Silver is going to have to negotiate with the Players Association, try and figure out what they want, and then he's going to have to, you know, formulate a plan, working with the Players Association, formulate a plan, then take it to the owners for a vote on Thursday, and if the owners approve that, then that'll be the plan to return the season, because you've got to not only appease the owners, you got to also appease the players. So basically now is, you know, up until Thursday, we kind of have a general idea of what the plan is, but Adam Silver is going to be working with the players, trying to figure out some sort of plan for return to action, and then he's going to take it to the owners for a vote.
Yeah.
I don't know if that vote is going to be like it has to be 16 owners or more than that, or what exactly a number is. I assume it just have to be a simple majority.
What's weird is you would think Golden State wouldn't vote for, or probably vote for it to just go straight for the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So that means there might have been a playoff team. I'm trying to think of, like, maybe there's a situation like one of the middle of the pack East teams thinks they could move up or have a tough matchup. Like they're in the 4 or 5, so they have to play Milwaukee in the second round. But if they're only a game or two out of being in the 3rd seed, and then they could move up possibly.
Yeah, but they can just do that with like a 1 through 16, you know.
Yeah, but I'm wondering why.
Yeah,
like you said, 16 teams voted for it. Like, why one?
I think honestly, it might be because Houston and OKC are tied, right? 5 and 6. It could be something like that. It could be Dallas because Dallas is close and Dallas is at 7. Instead of playing the Clippers, they'd want, you know, honestly, I think it's most likely to be Dallas because Dallas.
Yeah.
Isn't at risk for really losing ground. You know, they're 7 games ahead of Memphis. They're in the 7th seed, though, so that'd be a first-round playoff matchup against the Clippers. They're close to 6, so they could potentially be able to, you know, jump up to 6 and get a much easier first-round matchup than if they had to play the Clippers. So, honestly, like, and Mark Cuban is the type of guy to, like, really think that through. So if I had to place any money on a playoff team voting against just going straight to the playoffs, I'd vote for Dallas.
That's true. That's a good example.
Yeah. So I wish I could see who voted for that and who didn't.
What's up, Clays? How you doing? He said his notifications didn't show up for him.
Yeah.
It did for me. It was kind of late, but it eventually showed up. But yeah. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. It sucks that people can't get consistently notified.
Yeah, YouTube's just kind of not I don't know. Like, obviously it's YouTube, but there's still a lot of things they could improve with the way things are ran in the software and all that. But I don't know, YouTube's not really a transparent company, and I don't expect them to ever like address any of the issues like that, so it just leaves people like me guessing like, okay, is this one going to show up or not? But that's why I try and post it in Discord and tweet it out and all that. I can't get access to Blazers Uprise Live, or I can't get access to the Blazers Uprise Twitter account on my computer, so that's why I'm not tweeting out from there. I've tried to fix that. I need to like revisit that. But I've just been tweeting out on my own account, just in case you guys don't get the notifications, you know. But then again, a lot of people probably don't want to get tagged in Discord, and definitely don't want tweet notifications
every time you're
tweets.
fighting.
Yeah.
Every time you're fighting with a Thunder fan.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, cause I do tweet quite a bit, so yeah, I don't know. I wish there was like an easier way to notify people. Honestly, Discord's probably the best method. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. It will be interesting to see how things go when the league resumes with the channel and everything. Yeah, I'm just curious, man. I'm just curious to see how this goes, how this plays out, what the plan is.
Yeah, hopefully, less than a week we should find out. Finally.
Yeah, I mean that Friday podcast, or try not to call it a podcast anymore. That Friday show will be very, very fun. I'll definitely like hype that up, advertise that more than I advertise most live shows. Like leading up to that, because we will obviously break down what the plan is, what it could mean. We'll be going in that podcast in depth on whatever happens on Thursday. So I actually am really, really looking forward to that Friday show next week.
For sure.
Because it'll be different than us, coming here and like searching for things to talk about and just talking with chat. Like we're gonna have like we could legitimately break that down for an hour easily, and that's gonna be like the first live stream that we've had like that where we could just break down stuff for an hour and not really have to search for anything to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You got to think that once the season resumes or the playoffs start, that people will be into it and it'll be a pretty big event. So hopefully that brings a lot of viewers.
Yep. Wouldn't more non-playoff teams vote to go straight to the playoffs? I don't know. It's kind of hard to guess. Maybe there's multiple playoff teams that didn't vote to go straight to the playoffs, and there's multiple non-playoff teams that wanted to go straight to the playoffs. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny that you had 16 yes votes on that when there's 16 playoff teams. Maybe that's a coincidence, but maybe not. What was I going to say? I am curious as to, like, they said 20 or 22 teams. 20 teams seems perfect to me. 20 teams seems perfect to me. I don't know why you'd expand it to 22, maybe to include Phoenix and Washington, but a team 5 games back, it doesn't make sense including them unless you like shorten the games back, or unless it's some sort of like play-in tournament instead of like some round robin, finish to the regular season.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is like maybe they felt like, why are we giving this opportunity to West teams and not the 9th seed in the East as well, and that every other team was too far back. But yeah, I think 20 is perfect too. I don't think the Suns and Wizards should be a part of it, based on they kind of fell off at the end there. But
well, I mean, going off your point, that's why it makes perfect sense to just go to 1 through 16 playoff format. The number one reason not to do that is traditionalism, but this is not a traditional season, obviously.
Yeah.
Never had a season like this. Never had a year like this. So that's out the window. The second reason is travel. There's not going to be any travel. They're all going to be in Orlando, And the thing is, if you have a playoff series between Boston and LA at the first round, and then, say, LA wins, and then it's between, I don't know, Brooklyn and LA in the second round, like, that's an insane amount of travel for LA. To constantly have to go from coast to coast, 2 series in a row, like, teams only go to the East Coast like 3-4 times a year. They'll play like 3 or 4 games over there, then they'll come back. You're talking about like games 3 and 4 going to the East Coast, coming back. Game 6 going to the East Coast, coming back. Then in the second round, say you don't have home court advantage, games 1 and 2 go in there. If it goes 7, game 5 back. Games like that's more back and forth from coast to coast than teams usually have in an entire season if those series go the distance, So that travel is a big issue, and that is one of the biggest reasons why, as a Portland Trailblazer fan with us up here in the top left corner of the country, I don't want to have a first round series against Miami and then Boston.
Yeah, we already get screwed with travel throughout the season.
Yeah, so I mean that's why I'm not like, I hate the suggestion for just a normal NBA season, but in this scenario I think it's perfect just because there is no travel and this isn't a traditional season, so let's see how it would play out. It'd be kind of cool to see it once, you know what I mean? Especially in this scenario, it makes perfect sense. But then it also makes perfect sense just because the teams that you have battling for playoff position, and just the way it kind of shake out, like Brooklyn without Kyrie, without KD is not better than any of the West teams 9 through 12. I honestly don't think Orlando is really better than Portland or San Antonio or even Sacramento. Like, I don't think Orlando's good. They just benefit from playing in the Eastern Conference. So if you're going to go 1 through 16 and you're going to bring these teams back, or if you're going to bring these, have a 20-team play-in, I think it just makes the most sense to possibly go 1 through 16 and then make it so that you might only have 6 Eastern playoff teams and 10 Western Conference playoff teams. It makes sense for a 1 through 16 format,
Yeah, I can just see that being like really like an awesome thing and really successful viewership wise, and then they'd be like, see, we should have gone to the 16 seeded that way before.
I don't think the NBA is that stupid though, because I mean the situation the country's in, whatever goes on TV sporting wise is going to get insane views, and you can't use that as evidence. I mean, you look at NASCAR, their first race back at Darlington, they had over 6 million viewers. Like, that's insane for NASCAR. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that they should always race without fans or, always race at that one track or something, Like, it doesn't mean anything for, like, projecting, them, It doesn't mean anything. It shouldn't be used to project how things would be if you used that circumstance. So, a 1 through 16 playoff tournament probably get maybe better views than the NBA has had in decades. I'm not sure. Doesn't mean they should go to that, Hopefully the NBA wouldn't be that stupid where they would ignore the context of the shape everything's in.
So, Trevin suggests a 1 through 22 playoff format and just have the series play out that way. Would we really be playing the Nuggets in that scenario? I like that idea too.
Would we?
But
no, we wouldn't be playing the Nuggets.
If it was 1 through 22, I don't know.
Well, how would that? Let me look up. Let me go.
So what you could do with that is then you could say whatever the top 3 records after the first round would have a bye in the second round. That'd be kind of cool.
The top 3 from each conference, you said?
No, just because you'd be left with 11 teams if one played 22 and so on. So the second round, you'd have 11 teams, so it's not an even number to do that. So in the second round, you could just say whatever 3 teams were the 3 highest records or seeds or whatever would get a bye in the second round, and then you'd have like 4 play 20 or whatever and go from there. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to... Is it 3 or is it 6? Because if you have 3 teams with byes, no, but you can't have 12. You can't have 12 in the second round. Because then that would go down to 6, then down to 3. You'd have to have 16 in the second round, so that it can go down to 8 to 4 to 2. Each round has to have like 2, 4, 8, or 16, or else it like divides into an odd number. So you'd have.
That's what I'm saying. You give seeds, whatever, how many ever seeds it need. My math might have been off, but
I'm just trying to do the math. It's hard.
So if you had 10, you'd have 5. Yeah, so it'd only be 6. You'd have to figure something out.
I think you'd give 6 byes, and then you'd have the other 16 teams play, and then you'd have you'd give 8 byes.
There's got to be a way
7?
to figure it out.
I really want to do the math. If somebody can do the math before me props. You give 8 teams a bye, right? And then you have 14 left over. They play, and that's 7 winners. No, you'd have to give 10 teams. Yeah, you'd have to give 10 teams a bye. 10 teams would have a bye, and 12 would play in that play-in round if you did a 1 through 22. Because then if 10 teams have a bye, and then you have 12 teams playing the play-on round, you'd have 6 winners from that round. Add on to the 10 that have byes, that would be 16. And then to 8 to 4 to 2. So in that scenario, you would have 11 versus 22. Right? God, how does that bracket work? I don't know. Like, the seeding would be weird with that. I don't know if... Yeah, 11 would play 22. 22 would be Washington. So we'd play 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We'd actually play Orlando. Because we're 17th, Orlando's 16th. And that's, like, split down the middle of 11 through 22. So, Orlando, we'd wipe the floor with them. Yeah, no, that's... But then we'd play Milwaukee after that. So, yeah.
unless they reseed it based on whoever the highest and lowest seeds were. So, like, if 22 won their matchup against 11th, they would be the 16th seed. So then they would play Milwaukee.
I'd hope they'd do that, to be honest. Because, yeah, like Washington versus... Who would 22 versus 11 be? 22 versus 11 would be Indiana versus Washington. I mean, Washington might be able to... If that's like a 3-game series or a 5-game series, you know, you're bound to have more upsets the shorter the series is. So, yeah, if they could reseed and you have, you know, like the Pelicans below us and they win, the Spurs could maybe do something against a team like Memphis. Like, you know, that's kind of a bit of a toss-up. If you could have a couple of teams below us win, then we'd play Toronto. That would be that'd be cool.
Yeah,
would be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. That's why I'm just super curious, because there's so many different ways the NBA could go with the format of this. That's why I'm just super curious to see what exactly they do.
Or you could just play. So yeah, the math would be: you play 1 through 22 in the first round. So no one complains about teams with unfair advantage not having to sit around. Because the problem is the top 10 teams would complain that they are rusty and haven't played a game yet. Meanwhile, the other teams that did play in the first round got extra benefit of knocking the rust off and all that. So if you did it in the second round, so you'd have a first round of 1 versus 22, 2 versus 21, all over, and then give the top 5 seeds that make it out of the first round a bye, then you'd have 3 rounds, and you'd be left with 8 after that.
Yeah. I wonder if you'd want to reseed it all the way through or what. I don't know. It'd be...
Because, well, if you did your example where you have the top 10 do buys, like, it'd be really weird to set up a bracket ahead of time, so you would be just...
Yeah.
I think it makes perfect sense to reseed them in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that'd be like a play-in round. It wouldn't be like necessarily a part of the playoffs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, like, you know, you maybe like change the team seed, you know, so if you have 16, 18, and 22 win, you know, 22 would become 16, 18 would become 15, 16 would become 14, you know, Portland becomes 14, plays Toronto. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope it makes it possible for us to have a run just so we have more Blazer basketball and just so that'd be fun. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
In mixing the conferences together, like, Portland would be a dangerous team. I think Portland, honestly, would have a decent chance at winning any series against an Eastern Conference team except for Milwaukee if Portland is fully healthy. Not decent chance, not meaning like they'd be favored or anything, but like, you know, like decent chance, like we had a decent chance of winning the Denver series last year. Maybe, you know, maybe we should have been favored going into that series. I don't know. But like a team like Toronto, a team like Boston, like they're good. They might be better than us, but uh, that's a series we could definitely win, and if things go right, you know what I mean? Like if we play well, if Dame plays well, and it'd just be interesting to see like us play against like an Eastern Conference team in a playoff like scenario. You know, just to see how those types of games would go if they go any different than the Western Conference games we have.
It would be like the OKC series last year, where pretty much everyone picked us, but like I like our chances in that series, you know, or everyone picked us to lose.
Yeah. Which shouldn't have been a thing in the first place. But the thing is, Blazer fans were paranoid of that series and thinking we were going to lose. So it wasn't just like national media. It was Blazer fans too. I didn't understand that. I was speaking out against that. But yeah, I mean, Toronto.
Well, most people wanted us to lose, so we didn't play OKC to begin with.
Yeah, ridiculous. We would have made the Western Conference Finals, and then those people were like, "Oh, look, we made the Western Conference Finals. Props to Stotts," even though he tried to do what I said and lose in the last game of the season, which would have meant we would have never made the Western Conference Finals, which is basically what I wanted to happen, but it didn't happen. You know what I mean? It's just funny, like how people didn't want the easier second round series. They were just like, let's just make sure we get an opponent that we can beat in the first round. Like, have more confidence in your team. Like, they choked the year before in the playoffs, but they were the 3 seed. They're the 3 seed again. Have the confidence of a fan of a team that's the 3 seed. Like, you know what I mean? We had a better record than them for a reason. We were better than OKC. OKC was an overhyped, overrated team. Like, with a guy who does not play well in the playoffs, which is Russell Westbrook. Like, that's why I did not understand that whole noise last season about, oh, we can't play OKC. Like, we beat them in 5 games. Like,
OKC fan likes to point out that we only won because Paul George was injured.
Yeah, excuses for players that were playing injured, right? Like, they were playing. Like, the thing is, it's so ridiculous. OKC fans, man, just completely denounce us having 3 starters injured for the majority of the season, but when it comes to the playoffs last year, oh, we lost because Paul George was hurt. He was playing. We were missing our second best player. Nurkic is our second best player. We were missing him. Didn't Kanter like separate his shoulder mid-series too? Yeah. Aminu was like fasting along with Kanter. You know what I mean? Like, you could search up a million different excuses. Paul George was playing. The thing is, you're not using an excuse when Paul George has a good game, and didn't he have a good game 5 and we still beat him?
Well, he played over 40 minutes a game that series, so if he was hurt and Donovan played him over 40 minutes a game, that's a little bit on their coaching and not injuries. But go look at the end of game 3 where they won. There's no way he was not acting hurt. He did that like double pump backwards dunk after the clock went over, and they were all celebrating and stuff.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden he's not hurt at all when they win, but then when they lose, oh, my shoulder, like, like he is like, look at him after that game. There's no way he's actually hurt that much to make it like a huge difference. And yeah, he had to have surgery, but it wasn't like something that prevented him from playing. And the other thing too is, OKC, like, because this fan was arguing with me about how we weren't in the playoffs last year, but if you look at OKC last year, they're the same as Memphis this year, where they had a super easy schedule up until this point of the season, and they fell off a cliff. Part of that was because Paul George got hurt, but part of it was also because they had the hardest schedule like Memphis had the remaining after the All-Star break. So they didn't even, if last year they didn't even have to play that out, they would have been a higher seed than us. And they would have been all like, oh, we're so much better than Portland, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it wouldn't have played out that way if we played out the full regular season this year, too, with Memphis. They would have fallen back a little bit due to their tough schedule. So, like, that's why it drives me crazy when OKC fans went through the same thing last year, but they can't see that that's the same situation as Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, they're just ridiculous. I don't know what it is with that fan base. Like, their Twitter presence just makes me cringe. I don't know what it is. Like, why OKC specifically? Why do they have so many ridiculously stupid fans? Like them and Houston. I just don't understand. Maybe it's just because they're the only fan bases that I really see being like that. Maybe that's because they direct the most stuff at us. But I swear, like, no other fan bases are like that. Like, I don't even see Laker fans being like that. Like, Laker fans just get on Photoshop too much and Photoshop
Yeah.
jerseys onto players too much. You know what I mean? But they're not like being dumb on Twitter constantly. Like, I don't know, man.
Here's what it is with OKC fans. I don't know about Rocket fans, but OKC fans, they have never had to live with a bad team or not making the playoffs because they've made the playoffs every year, I believe, since they moved to OKC. So they just think their team, they've never had to go through the tough times of a franchise where you have to like grind it out and regroup and stuff. And this year was supposed to be that year, but now that they are good this year, they're obnoxious about it. Like, oh, we like even in a rebuilding year, we're still better than Portland, huh? You know. But
God, I hope Gallinari leaves and Chris Paul gets traded. And
the funny part is, I've mentioned this before, but I think them having success this year was the worst possible thing that could happen. Because long term, the only piece they have on that team is Shai, and I mean, you can maybe say like a Baisley still has potential, of course, but like the only for sure piece they have long term is Shai, and they have guys like Chris Paul and Gallinari who help them win now, but they're not going to help them become a title contender in Shai's prime, you know. So, like they're just hurting their chances of getting those good players to contend in Shai's prime, and now just to have a good season this year, it's kind of like. I mean, we went through this too. The year after Aldridge went, we were much better than we thought. We were planning on, you know, being in the lottery a couple of years and rebuilding around Dame with a couple of high draft picks as well, but that didn't happen. And yeah, so all their draft picks could end up being like late first round picks, and that won't really help them rebuild. Or, I mean, you could have 800 first round picks, but if you never get a lottery pick out of all those picks, then how much does that really help you? Like, yeah, I would love to have their stockpile of picks for the Blazers as assets, but I just don't think this year is going to help them long term. And it's funny, like when this blows up in their face, that they don't realize that that's the consequences of this season.
Yeah, they don't know a single thing when it comes to roster construction because they haven't seen both sides of it, you know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, the only way it could help them is if, like, they get better trade value for Chris Paul. Because, like, Chris Paul playing good helped them win, and now he has more trade value. So, like, that's a positive to come out of it. But, like, he's not going to have a ton of trade value. Not many winning teams need Chris Paul, especially for $40 million, especially when he's aging. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the thing. They might not be able to move off him. So what? You bring him back next year. Maybe you try and re-sign Gallinari, but Gallinari's going to want a multi-year contract for around $20 million. He's been kind of injury-prone during his career. He's also getting up there in age. So you're going to pay Chris Paul and Gallinari over $60 million a year to possibly make the second round, which I don't even think they're a second-round team. They're a first-round exit type of team, just like they were before. Like, they're not any, like, other than the future picks, they're not any better off than they were before. Yeah, they do have, you know, SGA, which is, a young blue-chip prospect that they didn't have before. And they do have the extra picks, but if those extra picks don't translate into good NBA starters, if they're late first-round picks or, you know, in the 20s, they're not going to get to the point of contention on this route. They need to try and trade Chris Paul, let Gallinari walk. They basically need to try and get bad. That is their best way to get to contention. They're literally they gotta dip in order to rise. Right now they're just staying on this level path, and it's gonna be hard for them to really improve from there. Sure, they could trade some of those picks, maybe get a star, but even SGA and another star, like, that's still not any better of a situation than like Portland is in right now, which they're hating on Portland constantly, you know what I mean? But that's not any better, you know? Portland got Dame and CJ. Shai, I don't think Shai's ever going to be like a Damian Lillard level player, right? They got trade assets and picks, but it's going to be hard to get a Damian Lillard level player for a bunch of late first round picks. So it's not, I don't know. I don't have confidence in their future because of this year.
It's one of those situations where they need to take a step back to take a step forward, but like they won't do that. They're going to try to keep taking steps forward without taking that step back, and that's how their fan base acts too, and that's what drives me crazy.
They'll learn. They'll learn. I've nailed their team for the past 2 years, right? A bunch of Blazer fans and, media guys thought OKC was going to beat the Blazers in the first round. I had a ton of confidence going into that series. Look what happened. Before this season, a ton of analysts and people thought OKC was going to suck and be like a 27-28 win team. And I was on record for, I was on record for saying, because I was just looking at the roster before the season, I didn't see it. It's like they got Chris Paul, Joseph Alexander could take the next step. You got Steven Adams. You got Gallinari. Like, that's a decent start to a roster. You got Nerlens Noel off the bench. You got Dennis Schroeder off the bench. Like, that wasn't a bad roster at all going into this season. So I was saying, like, they could be a team that could definitely make the playoffs before this season. Look where they're at now. So, like, I've nailed their team so far. So, if an OKC fan was watching this, they'd probably be in chat talking trash, to me. But I've nailed their team for 2 years, and I am 100% confident that I've nailed their future as well if they keep going down this path and don't get to a point where they really suck. The thing is, if they get to that point where they really suck, all these Thunder fans aren't going to be so loud anymore, and that's going to be pretty nice. It's going to make Twitter a better place.
My contention with that was I thought they would blow it up this season and trade Gallinari and try to get value for those guys instead of holding on to someone who's going to be a free agent. And then I thought they would trade Schroeder at some point and get rid of a lot of those guys and go much younger and do what they did towards the beginning of when they moved to OKC, when they had Durant and Harden and Westbrook and all those guys. But yeah, so the fact that they didn't do that and were good like you thought they would be, is, like I said, is kind of bad long term for them. So, but yeah, they definitely are better than I thought they would be, even without trading those guys. I didn't think they would be better than us, but I didn't factor in, obviously, Hood and Collins going down. But yeah, just drives me crazy. What did you get into it with a fan about last night?
I don't even remember. I was just trolling them. I was just trolling them. It was funny.
Trevin had some guy tell him that no team can ever use injuries as an excuse because the probability of injury is the same for every team. And then so I was like,
what?
Yeah. And Trevin's like, I don't think you understand what probability means. Obviously he doesn't. But so then I was like, so Golden State this year, you can't use an injury excuse? He's like, no, you can. I'm like, well, then how can you say, you can't say that you can't ever use the injury excuse because of probability, and then say, oh no, it only applies to certain situations because Portland's not that good, because he was trying to argue that Nurkic and Collins and Hood suck, so it shouldn't have affected us at all. But you can't. That's fine if that's what your argument is. I mean, it's stupid, but fine, I get it. But you can't say that no team can use injuries as an excuse, and then every example I bring up have injuries be their excuse, but not okay for Portland to do that. Because I mentioned how Anthony Davis has only made the playoffs twice out of 7 years, and what's his excuse there? Is it injuries? Because he's been injured a lot, or is he not allowed to use the injury excuse? Or is Dame better than him then because he's gotten his team in the same conference to the playoffs almost every year that he's been in the league? And Anthony Davis hasn't done that, so maybe Dame is better than Anthony Davis then. And he's like, no, they've been injured, blah, blah, blah. And it's just dumb.
They're just very illogical. Yeah. They don't follow any logical process of thought with a lot of the arguments they make. So it's just something where I'm just at this point, I'm not even going to try and show the thing is, a lot of times in arguments with them, we're trying to show their way to a logical viewpoint, you know what I mean? We're trying to show for them to logic, but you can't. It's you try to hold their hand and take them to a logical viewpoint, and they just run off on some tangent about injury probabilities are equal for all teams except when it's not. Except when I say it's not.
Well,
like,
the funny part is, so I entered the conversation. It started between him and Trevin, and then, or it might have been someone else, but I noticed when him and Trevin were going at it. And then, so I entered it saying, like, so for one, like, I'm a guy who hasn't used injuries as an excuse this year. Yeah, it's the reason why we're not better than we are, but, like, there's other reasons too. And then, I specifically said that we should have had a better record even with the injuries. And then he kept saying, like, you have Dame and CJ, you should have been better. What's your excuse for that? And I'm like, dude, I just told you that I agree with you. I'm agreeing with you. He's like, quit dancing around the question. I'm like, I agree with you. I'm not dancing around the question. You are right. We should have been better even with our injuries because we had Dame and CJ for most of the season, and they should have been good enough to win some of those games we didn't. And he's like, yeah, see, you can just ignore the question. Like, dude, shut up. Like,
you, honestly, from now on, I'm just going to troll them. I'm not going to try and have some sort of logical conversation with these guys. Like, I'm just going to troll them like I did last night. Hopefully those of you who saw my tweets last night enjoyed those, because that was fun. That was a lot more fun than trying to, like, make them see logic, to be honest. So at this point, I'm just going to troll them. Like, that's all you got to do. And it's more fun, speaking from experience. So that's what I'm doing from now on, instead of trying to show these guys the light, because they're living in darkness, you know. Hopefully they find the light at some point in their, you know, fan lives, but it's pretty dark there in OKC.
I just can't wait till because they think if they're bad again that they'll just have like 3 straight drafts where they get 3 MVP level players again and be good again in 3 years. I just can't wait to see them someday like fall on their faces and be bad for several years, because it has to happen at some point. No team is like good forever. So yeah, I can't wait to see that fan base once they
them to become the Knicks, man.
They'd lose a lot of fan support if they were bad.
Oh yeah, Knicks fans are so humbled now. I mean, like, Knicks fans are still New Yorkers, but like, they, you know, you ain't gonna see those guys like going off on Twitter, and if they do, everybody just laughs at them. Like, they'll start like talking about Kevin Knox, and people just point and laugh, and they just can't say anything. Like, that is what I'm hoping for, man. That is what I'm hoping for.
Hey, Doge, what'd you get suspended for on Twitter? What's up, Destrom?
I do have to go soon because I got a dash planned. Actually, I haven't paused right now because it started at 4:30.
I think he's saying your trolling started. It was about the Dame caring too much about being called entitled, or
God, yeah, that was
someone said something about like, why does Dame even respond to these guys or whatever.
Yeah, they're so stupid. But ending off with Dame, his comments about not playing, you know, meaningless games. It was funny because we had that podcast, and I was like, or maybe it was the video, I forget. But I was talking about how like they should sit guys if they have to play 5 or 6 meaningless games. Like, they should not play their guys. And I think you brought up like Dame might not be down for that, you know, knowing Dame. And then it was funny because it was like right after we got
it was the next morning. Yep.
Yeah, Dame's like, I ain't playing no meaningless games. So I thought the timing of that was funny, which you shouldn't, you know. It doesn't make any sense to. Like, I understand finishing out a season if it's, you know, the season's already started. You finish out what you started with your team if it's a normal season. But this is not a normal season. You're talking about, you know, off for 4 months, then coming back for 5 games, like going to Orlando to play 5 games in a bubble. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no point. It's not like finishing what you started. It's like just a completely like messed up situation that's been tweaked in a way that screws over the Blazers. So why should he play when there's nothing to gain and there's everything? You know, if you lose, it's better for the organization, and it's not in a situation where it's like they're just finishing out the season. It's in a situation where it's just a completely botched one. You know, like, I'm glad he said that, and I will have videos reacting to like some guys shouting them out. I've already recorded the Orlovsky video, so I will have that up tomorrow. Probably I'm going to try and do a double upload tomorrow because I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'm not going to dash tomorrow. I'm going to take tomorrow off, so I'm going to try and catch up on some videos and all that.
I just want to say something about the Dame thing. So he didn't say that because he wants to sit out and he doesn't want to play. He said that because he has the influence, and he might have single-handedly gotten the Blazers into a play-in type situation if the NBA was leaning towards only including the 16 teams that were in right now. And that's why you use your influence if you have the power to say something that strong and to get the NBA to change their whole plan based on what you say. Like, you have to exercise that right if you believe in your team and want to win. Yeah. And he wants to win. It's not that he doesn't want to play. He wants to play and have a chance to win. He doesn't want to have to risk his life and go play for people if there's no reason for the Blazers to play. And anyone who calls him entitled for that is a piece of crap, but whatever.
Yeah, I got a reaction for that. So
yeah, can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Him and then Skip Bayless I plan on doing as well, and then maybe getting out a mailbag. And I still got to post pulse questions, so I'm a little bit behind right now. But you guys know I've, been doing a lot better job trying to keep up with, an upload schedule. And B, I also have a lot less free time now. Now that I'm driving. I've worked 8-hour days basically the last 3 days, so that's something that I wasn't really doing before. So now it's less free time. So I just got to get into a routine and kind of figure out strike some sort of balance with everything in my life. So just give me a little bit of time to figure that out. It might be a little rough on the uploads. I might say I'm gonna try and upload something and it might be late, but just know that it's not from a lack of trying.
Yeah, for sure.
So
good luck with all that.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, that wraps up this show. Thank you to everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hit me up on Discord or Twitter if you want to discuss anything, because I can still, be on my phone while I work and stuff. So I will check in with Discord and check in with Twitter and any stuff if you guys have any questions about my opinion on anything, or just wait for the mailbag that I'll be dropping the next couple days. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later. As always, peace out.